All right, everyone, welcome. We're super excited to welcome you to eBay Elevate today. It's a brand new webinar series brought to you by eBay and Small Business Britain. But before we get started, I just need to state that the advice and guidance that Gary and myself are sharing today are our own opinions, and they don't necessarily reflect the views and positions of eBay or Small Business Britain. So with that being said, also just want to let you know that the webinar today is being recorded. It'll be uploaded, so you'll get a link at the end. It might take a couple of days, but you'll get it out through to your email address, whatever it was you used to register for the webinar. You'll get that, so you can watch this back as many times as you could possibly desire. The chat function is turned off at the moment. There's a lot of people here, so that can be quite distracting for our very easily distracted brains, but there is a Q&A, so you can add questions in there, and at the end we'll grab all those questions and we'll answer as many as we possibly can at the end of the webinar. So,
you ready?
Without further ado, let's get going. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So this is all about ruthlessly efficient marketing. I'm James, and in the other window there, you can see my good friend and colleague, Gary. We're from 33%. We've been doing this for a little while, but we'll tell you a bit more about us later on. But we want to start off by thinking about you guys and about the problems that we hear about all the time from small businesses. And these are just some of the sort of things that we hear people say. And I'm sure there are people on this webinar right now that have said one of these things or certainly thought them. I can't come up with ideas to put onto social media, or I can come up with ideas, but those ideas aren't generating sales. I just don't have time to update my listings and do social and also run a business all at the same time. Most people are juggling, wearing many different hats, trying to do all these things at once, and there just isn't the time. So you need to be able to find a way to get all that stuff done. And ultimately, a lot of the problem is we just don't have the money to be able to compete with big brands. How do we compete with other massive businesses when we're just small businesses? Well, we're going to help with some of those problems today, because the truth is that most of those problems that people have are what we would call tactical problems, and they've all got strategic solutions. And when we're thinking about strategy, that's what we want to focus on. Because the truth is, I know you might be thinking, like marketing strategy, that's for big businesses. That's for people that need to go to. It's not for me. That's for people that need to go to the bank and get a big piece of paper they can show to their bank manager and say, Mr. Bank Manager, can you lend me some money, please, to start my business? And then they'll stick it in a drawer somewhere and never look at it again. But actually, that's so not true, because a marketing strategy is one of the most important weapons in a small business's arsenal to be able to fight against the big businesses. Because a big business, they can take a scattergun approach to marketing. They can try all sorts of different stuff, spend their money here and there and see what works out. But we don't have that luxury. We're not sitting on massive marketing budgets. So we're going to have to be strategic. We're going to have to focus on the things that matter. And that's what a marketing strategy really allows you to do. It allows you to get away from this overwhelm that you're probably feeling. And the truth is, right now, it's amazing, because I could start a new business tomorrow. I could sell anything I want, and there's all these different platforms I could use to do it. And there's all these different social media channels and marketing channels I could potentially use to talk to my ideal customer. And that's wonderful, but it's also terrifying, because you get this like kind of opportunity overwhelm whirring past you constantly like a Tasmanian devil, and you just can't see the way forward because there's so much choice. So the goal here is edit it down, get rid of all the extra things that you don't need to worry about, feel confident to say, that's what a marketing strategy does. It helps you feel confident to say, no, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to start that extra channel today. I'm going to focus on these things that matter, the things that are going to get me to my desired future state for my business. And that's what we're going to focus on right now. But first, who are we? Who are we to give you this advice? Well, as I said before, I'm not Gary. That's Gary. I'm James. And we've been doing this for 40 odd years.
Brilliant start.
Marketing and brand strategists. We've both run agencies. We've both grown businesses. That's all fabulous. We've exited some of those businesses, but the truth is, and crucially, the most important thing is, we have made a lot of mistakes, but we have learned from them, and that's quite important as well. And the thing that we really wanted to take away from all of that time working with these bigger brands and all these different people is that actually marketing doesn't have to be as complicated as we perhaps made it seem back in the days when we were running bigger agencies. So our goal now is just to help make marketing simple, make it easy, help people who feel overwhelmed not feel overwhelmed anymore, help you simplify it, get rid of all the stuff that you don't need to worry about, and make everything ruthlessly efficient. Because actually, if I think back to 23 odd years ago when I started my very first job in marketing. My boss came to me. I was, first job in marketing, feeling pretty pleased with myself, managed to land a job out of university, but feeling a bit nervous as well. What's this going to be like? But my boss set me at ease at the very beginning. He said to me, marketing is not rocket science if you can think like your customer and nail the basics. And everything I've done in my whole career since then has been built on this concept of being able to get into the head of your customer and nail the basics. And the basics are super, super simple. They are: understand what makes you special, what makes you stand out from the competition. Understand who is your ideal customer, not just any customer, but the perfect person for you to work with. Understand where you're going to find them, where you're going to seek them out, and then ultimately, and absolutely crucially, what are you going to say to them to get them to take action, to get them to purchase, to get them to engage? What's going to be the thing that you can do to make them do what you want?
Okay, that's amazing. We've got a plan. We need to have a strategy. We've got to understand who our customer is. We've got to understand what makes it special. That'll help us with the other things. And that's why we always start with those first two things. We always start with what makes you special and who's your ideal customer. And we always say they interlink, because at the end of the day, your customer, as they change, that might change what makes you special, what you sell, how you sell it. But conversely, as you evolve, as you have a new product, as your service evolves, that might also change who your ideal customer is. But that'd be brilliant. So these two things we always try to show them as a little circle going and interacting with each other. And critically, if you nail these two things, because we're all about simplifying this, if we can nail these two things, they actually help inform the other things we've just talked about. So for example, we're talking about where to find our customers. There is so much, as James said, there is so much choice. There's so many different opportunities. In the middle here, you've got all the different conversion points that we've got available to us. But around the outside, all the different options, all the different channels where we can find and interact with these customers. But if we understand who that customer actually is, that makes it much, much easier to find that customer and to be ruthlessly efficient about it. And we'll talk during the whole of the webinar about different ways to use these customers. But also, it works exactly the same as James said. It is critical to know what to say to that customer. Not just, we're not talking about general branding and content marketing and everything else, but actually specifically get into their heads, understand the things that make them purchase with you, because critical thing people always forget about marketing. Marketing is not just about nice pictures and nice words and branding and engaging content. At the end of the day, marketing has a single job, and that job is to create sales. If it doesn't generate sales, it's probably not doing its job. So critically, again, if we can get the customer involved in this process, if we understand what makes you special, if we understand who your customer is, we're going to make it much, much easier to know what to say to that customer and get them to convert. And ultimately, that means we need to understand Malcolm. Does everybody know who Malcolm is? It feels like not everybody knows who Malcolm is, James, so I feel like I should reveal Malcolm at this point.
Reveal
You've never
Malcolm.
Reveal Malcolm. You've never met Malcolm, but this is Malcolm. Malcolm is a persona. Malcolm is an avatar. There's loads of complicated marketing words that we can use to describe him, but ultimately, at the end of the day, he is our ideal customer, or at least he's one of our ideal customers. And you've probably all seen Malcolm's. You've probably seen loads of Malcolms. I mean, maybe I don't know. One of these days, someone is going to recognize Malcolm's picture and going to put it in, and that'll probably freak me out. But for the moment, nobody does. But Malcolm, it's a persona, but people have probably used personas. And loads of you are probably there again, a bit like the marketing strategy, going, yeah, but why do I need that? I mean, that's a lot of nonsense. That's a lot of noise on the screen. Does anybody actually use these things? Well, yes, they do. You should be using them. And we're going to show you, and that's a big part of today, is to show you how to use these personas, how they can be used to actually target and become ruthlessly efficient. So we'll come back and we'll talk a lot more about Malcolm as we go through. But here's an example of where Malcolm comes in. I showed you earlier this picture, lots of different options, loads of different things. Oh my, where do I start? I'm going to try and do a bit of everything. Oh, terrible, because I'm not going to do a very good job if I try and do a bit of everything. And we've worked with plenty of people who are doing 10, 12, 15 different channels. And let's be honest about it, they're doing a bang average job about all of them. But what if I introduce Malcolm into the mix? And not just Malcolm, because Malcolm isn't our only. We've got a couple of ideal customers. We've also got Sunita and we've got Emma. Now, hold on a minute. I know quite a bit about Malcolm because I've just showed you that. I know the things that Malcolm's interested in, but I also know the things that Sunita's interested in and what Emma's interested in. Now we can start to build up a picture by using these ideal customers and we can go, actually, rather than looking at everything, we can focus in on the things that matter. Because yes, Sunita's interested in Facebook. Malcolm loves webinar. By the way, I love the fact that I'm pointing at a screen as if anybody can see what I'm pointing at. But Malcolm likes webinars. Emma's interested in Pinterest. And those are all things ultimately that maybe we should be focusing on over time. But this job is all about being ruthlessly efficient because, you, as James said, you don't have 24 hours in the day to work on marketing. So we want to focus on the channels where they cross over and where you're interacting with them the most. So again, a really good example of why if we get into the head of the customer, we can really, really nail down this stuff. But it's the same thing for how we talk to our customer. Traditionally, what we tend to find is there's 3 things that make up the best way to talk to your customer. And most people always start with the first one, which is what they like talking about. Oh, I'll talk about this because it's the thing I like talking about, which is great. And it's lovely that you're passionate and you can talk about it. But the reality is the 2 things that actually matter are what makes your business special, what makes you stand out. We're going to talk about that in just a second. But also, unsurprisingly, it's what your customers want to hear. It's your customers want to see, the content they want to engage with. And to do that, you have to know who Emma and Sunita and Malcolm are. So again, if you can understand what makes your business special, and if you can understand who your ideal customer is, everything else about marketing becomes easy. I mean, I say easy, it's not easy. Very few things in life are that easy, but much, much easier. And crucially, yeah, more straightforward, was a much better phrase. And also more time efficient for you. So let's talk about those 2 subjects. Let's start with what makes you special. We always like to think about it like a recipe, a little secret recipe that we're going to reveal for you right now. So number 1 on that secret recipe is probably the most boring part of it, but crucial, which is what do you offer? But the most important thing to remember that anytime you're coming up with what makes you special, it's not what you project. It's not what you say. It's not, I build a website. I help people with their marketing. I sell these widgets. I have a restaurant. That's not what you offer. What you offer is what the customer wants to buy. The customer wants a place on the web where they can sell their products. So that's what you're offering. So always reframe what you offer into the mindset of the customer. And that's why we always say, what makes you special, who your ideal customer is, they are intrinsically linked because you have to understand what the customer's thinking. So what do you offer in the terms that the customer understands? Second, and this is where we start to build it up, because that first thing, even if you've really worded it well and you've put it into the mind of the customer, let's be honest, there's probably another 20, 30, 50, 2,000 businesses that can all offer the same thing. Like, you know, I'll be honest with you, we're a marketing agency in Manchester. I could probably do a little jog for 15 minutes and find another 20 marketing agencies in Manchester quite easily. So if we just said we're a marketing agency, it's not going to get us very far. There's no cut through on that. So we have to start building up the layers of what makes us special. So the next part of that is, how do you deliver it? How do you do things differently? You know, it could be, if you're selling a product, it could be about the packaging. It could be about how you describe the product. It could be how it's made. It could be how you source it. All of these things start to build up what's different about what you do and how you deliver it and how you make it and how you sell it. And then you've got the final one, the thing that always makes people uncomfortable. Whenever we run workshops, the first thing we get people to do is go, what makes you special? What makes you as a person special? Because that is the small business advantage you have. That we have worked with massive businesses and we work as a small business ourselves. So we totally get, I'm up against big business. How do I compete with that? But there's a big crucial thing you have, and that is you and your values, your beliefs, your skill sets, your talents. Nobody else has that. Nobody else can replicate that. You know, the big boss man at Sainsbury's, he can have a wonderful strap line that he wants everybody to say as they walk in the door on a Sunday morning. But if that guy on the door on a Sunday morning has been out had a few beers on Saturday night, he's not going to be there giving it the old Sainsbury's what ho on a Sunday morning. So the difference you have is it's all about, I don't know where the Sainsbury's what ho came from. That's new for me. I like the Sainsbury's what ho. But the whole point being that it's all about you. It's about your uniqueness. You bring specialness to this. You bring something different. And again, if you combine, it's personality. There you go. It is your personality.
Can't do that. Big brand can't have that personality. It's not as easy.
No, it's not off. Big brands are not authentic. There's no getting away from it. They're very rarely authentic because they can't be. Whereas if we start to combine, like we started off by saying that none of you are unique, probably. I know I'm wrong. There'll be at least 20% of this crowd that is completely unique, but
totally unique.
Totally unique. But let's assume it's not, and you're competing with other people. Once you combine what you offer with how you do it, with you as an individual and how you add your specialness to it, that's how you create your unique business. So I want you to remember that. And the reason I want you to remember that is because at the back of this call, this webinar today, you are all going to go gangbusters. You're all going to grow massively, okay? Because that's quite frankly always happens whenever we do something. All the businesses grow massive at the back of it, which is brilliant. But word of caution, as you grow massive, don't forget what made you special in the first place. Don't forget this secret formula, because if you do, this is what will happen. And I'll share a story. A couple of guys we met not that long ago, I think it was November of last year, and they basically sell limited edition clothing, hoodies and t-shirts. Two really nice guys from Manchester that we know, and they were selling hoodies for £155 and t-shirts for £75. Way out of money. I mean, I'm not their ideal customer, but they do have a good. And they were both part-time for a period of time, and they were selling every 3 months. They'd come up with a unique range, short run, sell it out. And gradually over time, they started getting bigger and bigger runs, but always selling through. And one of the guys had gone full time. Brilliant. Everything's going really well. Except when by the time they come to us, they just had their first quarter where they hadn't sold through, and they didn't understand why. And the reason they didn't understand why was because they'd forgotten what made them special. They had gone and got some very generic, typical advice from a business advisor who hadn't understood their business properly, hadn't understood their customer properly. And as a result, told them, oh, well, I can get you some cheaper. I can get that done for you cheaper over in Greece. And I can get that done for you, and actually you should repeat some of those lines. And, so that gave them some really general advice, which basically meant they started selling their hoodies for £105. They started selling their t-shirts for £40, but they didn't sell through. And the reason they didn't sell through is because the reason people bought from them is because it was all sustainable. The quality was high. It was all incredibly unique every single time. And it was all UK made and sourced. And those were the things that mattered. And there was a final thing that mattered, which they didn't understand. So they started talking to the customers, which was reassuringly expensive. It's a classic marketing tactic. They were walking around going, no one else is going to be wearing this t-shirt because it's very expensive and there's only a limited run of it. And they'd forgotten what made them special. And you have to keep remembering what makes you special as a business. And if you do that, that's how you grow and that's how you succeed. And that's how your marketing works. But we did say there was two sides to this. So we have what makes you special. The other side of the circle, James, was?
Who is your ideal customer? And this is absolutely vital because you can't really get into the head. You can't think like your customer if you're trying to think like this broad, nebulous person who's between the age of 20 and 75, and you just don't really know anything about them. So you have to try and get a more focused, detailed answer to the question of who is your ideal customer. But before we go into the detail of how we get into the head of our ideal customer, I do have to deliver a bit of bad news, and that is that not everyone is your customer. I don't care how amazing your business is, and I know all of them are amazing, and I know they're all fabulous, and I know that if you could reach everyone on the planet, they would all be better off for it. But the reality is none of us included, are sitting on a pot of a couple of £1 million worth of marketing budget, which means that we just aren't going to be able to create cut through and get in touch with absolutely everybody everywhere. So we're going to have to be smart about it. We're going to have to be efficient, and we're going to have to focus. We're going to have to use our marketing to create a connection, a deep connection with our ideal customers. And that's the process that we're all about, because what we want is we want you to be able to think of your customer like they're your best friend. Because if I think like a business, I think like let's say I'm a website design business. I design websites. You guys are all running businesses. So that's, hundreds of people that could be my potential customers, which is a massive market opportunity. So that's definitely the way to go. Go broad, more people. That's a win. So I go out with an ad or a social post that says, we designed websites for people with businesses. They look nice and they're super cheap. So I've gone in with a price message there, trying to appeal to everyone. That should be pretty good. I should get loads of inquiries on the back of that. But if I think like a customer, if I go back to Malcolm that we met right at the start, he's a restaurateur. He's got a restaurant, and his biggest problem in life is the fact that his tables aren't full every evening. He's got half his covers are there, the rest of the tables are empty. He's got a website that's not delivering any traffic for him. And he goes and he finds an ad for a company that says, we build websites for hospitality businesses to help them fill their tables. How much is it? I don't know. Doesn't matter. I'm not interested in the price of that thing. I'm interested in the problem that you're telling me you can solve. And I love that, because that means that you're going to immediately create that connection. So even though you're narrowing down your market, you're connecting on a deeper level, and you're not going to have to use price. You're not going to have to spend as much money to get to those people. And ultimately, you're going to be able to build that relationship that allows you to treat your customer like your best friend, that person that you know as well as you know yourself, that family member that you don't need to get somebody else to sign off your copy before you send them a WhatsApp message. You're going to see a product and you think, oh, they'll love that. Or you see an amusing GIF and you think, oh, I'll share that with them. They'll get a real kick out of that. That'll be really funny. And you don't have to think about it too much. And if you get into that point with your ideal customer as well, it makes everything easier. All your content is easier. Coming up with new ideas for products or services is easier, because you ask yourself, well, would Malcolm buy that? Would my ideal customer buy that? And if they would, awesome, go for it. And if they wouldn't, maybe it's something for another time. Pop it to one side and come back to it at a later date. So how do we get into the head of our ideal customer? And there's a really simple process that we try and go through to fill out to get to that point. And the first thing to think about is, what are their pains? What are their needs? What are their desires? What do they want? How can we talk to them in a language that they're going to understand and they're going to relate to, not in marketing waffle or product bullet points, but in ways that they're going to completely connect with? So the first thing we think of is the pain. And this is the truth of it is that people don't really take action when they're comfortable. When you're sitting back and relaxed and not really doing anything, even if you're not super happy, you can be content and you can just sort of plod along. But pain creates action. And again, pain is not all about, my foot's falling off. It could be actually just that I've got a bit of a space on my wall and I can't find something interesting to put on it, something that speaks to me. That's a pain. So different pains do require different types of marketing. But whatever that pain is, we want the customer to look at our marketing and go, yeah, that's it. They get it. That's the problem I've got. And this business says they can solve that for me, which is perfect. I want to engage. I want to find out more. I'm going to dig a bit deeper into this conversation. So that's the connection we want to make right from that very first piece of marketing. But then we're going to think about, what do they need? What is the thing that they absolutely have to have from this product or service? So then we can become the hero. We can solve their pain. We can get them the solution that we know they need. But crucially, we need to be able to get them that solution quickly, easily, efficiently, and of course, for the right price. And the right price doesn't mean the cheapest price. It could absolutely mean a more expensive price, as with the example Garry gave earlier. Going cheaper isn't always the answer. And we often, again, it's a truism of all small businesses that they undervalue their time, they undervalue their products, and they try and sell for cheaper than they're probably worth. And you could probably all deal with that. If you get the right customer, then you don't have to worry as much about the price. And the types of needs, there are many and varied types of needs, but we're talking about things like, I've got a cold, I need medicine. If I've had a car accident, I need a garage. If I'm working from home, then I'm going to need a desk, something to put my computer on. I'm going to need a computer. These are things that I absolutely have to have. But the crucial thing here is, like with all marketing, these are subjective. So everybody, like it or not, needs toilet paper. That's just a reality of life. But if I'm working from home and I've got a printer, then I'm going to need printer paper to put into the printer. But if I'm an artist, I'm going to need art paper, canvas, this kind of stuff. Now, I quite like doing a bit of art from time to time. So for me, having a sketch pad around is it's a luxury. So it's a desire for me, but it's not necessary. I don't need it. So again, getting into the head of the ideal customer allows you to establish, is this thing that I offer a need, or is it a desire? Is it nice to have, or is it something that this customer absolutely has to have? And then we get on to the subject of desires. So these are absolutely broader. They are absolutely more emotional, 100% subjective. They're things that are considered kind of like an upgrade based on the other stuff that, based on the need you provide. These are kind of a little extra, something nicer, but they're not really about the features, the benefits. They're not really about the widgets and the detail. They're about selling a lifestyle, about selling an experience, about what is it like to be associated with this brand, or to have this product, or whatever that may be, because it creates that emotional connection. So some examples of the sort of balance between a need and a desire are, I need a gift, but I want something that's unique. I want something that shows how much I care about the person that I'm buying it for. I need a car, but I want alloy wheels or tinted windows or heated steering wheels. These are all things that people have in cars, aren't they?
James, by the way, in case anybody can't work out, James doesn't know anything about cars, but he always does a car analogy.
I know alloy wheels are important to people, to some people. So, but I might need paint. I need paint on my walls, but I might want a painting on my wall, something nice that speaks to me. Again, these are all things that people might want versus things they need. And again, what they will pay for those things entirely varies depending on their personal view of what the value of those things are. So we've done a good job of creating a connection. We've spoken to them about their pain. We've understood what they need and what they want. But in the end, we do need to make them buy something. So we're going to have to consider, what are their purchase drivers? What are the things that are going to make them take action? And when we talk about purchase drivers, we often split people into, with a slightly broad brush approach, split them into two camps. There are emotional purchasers, and those people are a bit like me, for whom a countdown clock, a limited edition, a discount, these are all things that will make me go, oh, that's exciting. I'm going to buy that, even though I wasn't planning to at all. And then there are logical purchasers, like my good friend Garry here, who goes to the supermarket with a list that's itemized by aisle. He knows what he's going to buy, and he certainly isn't walking out with any of those extra little purchases that you might be tricked into buying by special offers. So again, these are things he's going to focus on by being sensible, logical. That's the way that Garry likes to buy stuff.
Or boring, as James normally describes me.
Well, I think it leads to a life of unexcitement and tedium, but he also spends less money on stuff that he never uses. So it swings and roundabouts. This is the way it goes. So examples of impulsive drivers are things like a buy it now, things like a discount, things like a limited edition. Again, it doesn't have to be price related. It can be about scarcity. And again, creating scarcity is something that is a really valuable message for the right sort of customer. But for a logical driver, we're looking for reviews. We're looking for social proof. We're looking for some demonstration that somebody else has had their pain solved by your business in the past, and therefore it would probably work for me as well. But it is also crucially important to remember that in this wonderful day and age that we're in right now, I can be an impulsive purchaser. I can look at a countdown clock, but I've still got time to head over to Instagram, to look on Twitter, to look at one of the review sites and understand, is this business a good business? Is this product a good product? Am I going to get a decent level of service from it? So actually, you really do have to use both of these things in tandem. But when you really understand which one your customer, which area your customer falls into, it allows you to sort of trigger them by using these different techniques, depending on what sort of person they are.
So we have, I think, beyond doubt, proven why you need a marketing strategy, why it's important to get into the head of the customer, to understand the needs, the pains, desires, the purchase drivers. But you might be sitting there thinking, but I'm already on an amazing platform like eBay or Etsy, any other platform where traffic has already been driven there, and you're thinking, I want to focus on converting people. I want to convert. No. And there are amazing things within things like the eBay Academy where you can learn as much as possible about how to optimize those listings. But the reality is, your job is also to drive your own traffic. It is also to get your own traffic. We always use this analogy of the market stall, because there's some amazing, massive fan, used to live in Camden, massive fan of Camden Market. Loads of people go to Camden Market specifically because it's Camden Market. There will be, local to where you are, there will be fairs, there will be local fairs going on, massive markets, everything else. And the traffic is driven to it because there's this overall fair or market going on. And that's brilliant. And you've got a stall there. That means it's going to be passing traffic. But the reality is, they're not coming there specifically to see you. They're going to see all the different stalls, and they could just as easily walk past you and go and see another stall, not even get round to your part of where you are in the market. So whilst there is a load of traffic there, a load of footfall, a load of people walking past, if you were driving your own traffic and you'd managed to engage with, let's say, 25 people online who specifically came to that market to see you, they're going to come to your store, whatever happens. They're going to search you out. They're going to find you. They're going to come directly to you. They might see other things while they're there, but they're going to come and see you. And that's what this is all about. This is what marketing, if you're on a platform, or even if you got your own website, that's what this is about. This is about driving your own traffic, a traffic that's engaged with your product, with your brand, with your way of doing things. So that's why it's critical. That's why, we go through this entire process, regardless of what platform you're on, and say, drive your own traffic, because then you get the best of both worlds. You get this combination of this high footfall that's been driven by these huge audiences that are on platforms like eBay, but you've also got your own smaller niche targeted audience. So you get a combination of two. And if you can combine those two things really, really well, that's when you're going to succeed the most. And we did promise that we would use those ideal customers. Why build up this man? We've talked about him a lot. You remember Malcolm. So Malcolm is our man, and we're going to use Malcolm. Here he is. As I said before, a lot of people probably look at this and go, oh, God, it's those persona things, isn't it? Yeah, great. I mean, how do you ever use that? Well, let's start to pull out some of that information that we found out about Malcolm. That he doesn't have much free time because he's working in his restaurant, and he's we know that he's got, maybe he's struggling to keep up with his kids because he's a new dad, you see. He's not a massive fan of gyms, doesn't have a massive amount of space in his house. He likes a podcast, watches YouTube, does Instagram. Now, all those pieces of information, as we start to pull those out, as marketeers, that helps us understand him. That helps us also target at him. And it helps us both do targeted where we can find it, but also how we connect with him. So let me start by taking the easy one, and I'll let James do the complicated one, because that's generally how we work. So first of all, helps us head to the right place. We talked a little about this earlier. There is this massive amount of content, a massive amount of areas, places that you can sell to people, you can connect with people, you can discuss with them, you can do ads, you can reach out to them. There's 1,000,001 social media platforms, there's digital content, but it's too much. And as a business, if you try and perfect each one of these channels, you're not being ruthlessly efficient. What you're doing is you are doing a very bad job. You're doing a bad job in every single one of those channels. If you are on Instagram and Facebook and Pinterest and TikTok and YouTube, and you've got emails going out, and you're doing some PPC, and you're trying to optimize your SEO, and you've written some white paper content, and you've done a podcast and whatever else, I'm already tired just sort of listing them out. So I don't know how you're keeping up with those. But the whole point being is, if we can start to strip these back, we can start to go, actually, when I looked at Malcolm, and I looked at Sunita, and I looked at Emma, what I discovered was that if I focus on these 3 channels, I will absolutely nail them, and I will maximize my time. Yes, over time, I'd like to add Pinterest. Yes, over time, I'd like to add Facebook. But actually, if I nail these 3, I give myself the best opportunity to grow my audience, the best opportunity to reach those ideal customers. And once I've reached those ideal customers, if I go back to all the information I know about Malcolm, the next thing I want to do is I want to create a genuine connection. I don't want to do generic marketing. I want to create a genuine connection.
Yeah, and the beauty of only having those 3 things is that you can then go back to the start. We talked about this idea of tactical problems that have a strategic solution. You can get good at 3 things. You can go and do an Instagram course. You can go and learn about how YouTube works. You can learn about how to create a great podcast. You can't get good at all of those things at once. So you can solve the algorithm hacking business of all those things by looking at that stuff. But none of those things will teach you how to create a connection with your ideal customer. That only comes from you, and it comes from you creating that deep understanding of your ideal customer. So let's think about Malcolm, and let's imagine we're selling fitness equipment, or perhaps we're a personal trainer or something like that, and we want to create a connection via an ad with somebody like Malcolm. Well, so what do we know about Malcolm? Well, he's a dad, wasn't he? He's a dad. He's got young kids. He's a bit out of shape, so he might be a possible good customer for a fitness equipment brand. We've all seen it on Facebook. We've been on Facebook and scrolled through. I could go on Facebook right now and I could scroll probably for a couple of pages, and I bet I'd see an ad that looks a little bit like this. We've got a before, someone that looks a little bit like I did last night, followed by someone else who looks nothing like I do, looks more like Garry does. You've got this idea that, yeah, we're all offering a silver bullet, something that's going to turn you from this slovenly looking individual to this buff looking fella on the side by just, eating a couple of different things, doing a couple of burpees once in a while and stuff like that.
Do you even know what a burpee is, James?
Yeah, I've seen. I did once. I saw Joe Wicks do one once, actually, so I know what they are. I can't say I've ever done one, but you get the idea. Like I look at that and I go, all right, fine, sure, whatever. That's definitely going to be that'll be after a couple of days worth of effort. And Malcolm's the same. Malcolm's looking at it thinking, I haven't got time for that. I'm never going to look like that. I'm actually not even that bothered about looking like that, and I'm certainly not bothered about going into a gym and clanging and banging and trying to look like The Rock. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen for me. But if I saw an ad that looked something like this, I go, yeah, that's I have got a bad back, and all I want is to be able to lift up my kids, be able to put them on my shoulders or race them around the garden without feeling absolutely exhausted. And that is the difference. And suddenly I've gone, all right, this is interesting to me. You sound like you understand what my problem is. And suddenly I'm going to see more content about this. I might see content about, well, how do we make this, with this particular fitness equipment, well, it fits into a convenient place in your house because I haven't got much space, so it can fit in nicely. You can talk about how easy it is to use in little gaps of time throughout your day, because you don't have to spend 3 hours in a gym. You can just jump on this, you can use that, you can do whatever. So again, we're speaking to the fact that he hasn't got enough time. We're speaking to the fact he doesn't have much space. But most importantly, we're cutting to the heart of what is going to emotionally drive this ideal customer, which is the fact that he just wants to be able to pick up his kids and lift them over his shoulders and put them on top of his shoulders and run around all day and not feel out of breath. And that is going to create a connection way more than the six-pack buff looking fellow on the previous thing. So this is how you have to approach all of your stuff. So have a look at your content, the things that you're using, your listings, your photographs, your posts, your everything that you do, and ask yourself, does this speak to the pain of my ideal customer, or is it just telling you about the product in general and everything like that? And that's a real good way of focusing your attention and making sure that everything you put out really connects with the customer and starts that dialogue early.
So that's why we always end with this. We've actually done a very similar ad for a customer of ours, and it was very, very successful. We haven't used their exact ad because this is just a bit more fun. But the whole point is we always end with this example because it shows you the whole point that we said at the start is that people create these personas, these avatars all the time, and people just never know what to do with them. So we want to show you that actually, when you do use them properly and you do understand them, we now know where we got to pinpoint him. So this ad, this could be a video, this could be imagery, it doesn't matter. It could be a reel. If we put that on Instagram, we know that is going to hit Malcolm because that's where Malcolm's based. We know Malcolm looks through that stuff. We know that is going to appeal to him because it's hitting his needs. And that's why we always end here by going, right, we've got to really focus on the needs, the pains, the desires, the purchase drivers, the things that are going to push them over the line and be as ruthlessly efficient as possible. By doing this marketing strategy, we haven't had to manage 12 channels. We haven't tried 59 different messages to see if it worked. We haven't got, 1,400 keywords working on Google and everything else, because we know if we can be ruthlessly efficient, we can do less, but we can do it way, way better than we've done before. And that really is the key for us. And that's why we can always talk about what we always want to end. We are just action orientated. We always want you to go away with things to do. We like to give you jobs because, we've just done a job for a period of time. It might be one we love doing, but we've still done some work and we want you to go away and do some work. So we've got 5 key takeaways we want you to go away with. Number 1, please do complete that secret recipe, that thing that makes you special. What you do as the customer thinks about it, how you deliver it, how you do it differently so you stand out. And the bit that you're all going to hate doing, which is why you're special, what you bring to it. Get that, write that down, and always, always please remember that every time you do any piece of marketing, anytime, as James said, anytime you go to look at what products you should be doing, what new services should be coming up, think about what makes you special, what you bring to things.
And the next thing is, you've got to complete that avatar template. You've got to get the detail down about who your ideal customer is. And the beauty of this is we've got a lovely template that we're going to share with you as well. So when you get the recording of this webinar, you'll also get a link to a template that helps you answer quite a lot of these different things. There's space in there for what makes you special. There's space in there for your avatar. There's space in there even to start thinking about what you're going to say to your customers. But you've got to fill in that avatar template and go as deep as you can. Put as much detail in there. It might take a bit of time, but crucially, by filling out that information, you're effectively writing your marketing messaging for the next year. But every single thing you put in there is going to give you some value that you're going to be able to use as a social post, as a product listing, as whatever that may be. So it really is time well spent.
Now I'm really going to start challenging you, because I want you to just focus on free channels. I want you to cut out the rest of the stuff. I want you to use those avatars that you've built. So let's say you've got your Malcolms, your Sunitas, and your Emmas, and you've gone, right, these are the 3 most important channels for me. I'm just going to, for the next 2 months, just 2 months, focus on those 3 channels, nail those 3 channels, get your content perfect, get your messaging so they appeal to the customer. It's not you projecting what you do, it's what's in the head of the customer. It's the words that they would say. So often people write things up about their business and it's just like, that's how you describe your business. That is not, those are not words that your customer would ever use. So focus on the things that matter to your customer. Go with those channels. Now, at the end of those 2 months, you've nailed those 3 channels. You can add the 4th one, and then you can add the 5th one. But let's start with those first 3 channels.
And then we want to get those topics. So we know we want to engage with our customer. We know we want we want to be talking about things that we know they're interested in. So again, you can use that template to understand what it is that they want to hear about, what it is that makes your business special, and find the bit that overlaps in the middle. And pick 3 topics that you're going to talk about, big, broad topics that can be the stuff that you always talk about. And then don't really stray outside of that area, because this is the trap that people fall into, is writing about things that are entirely irrelevant to their brand and to their ideal customer. I don't honestly care that it's raining outside where you are. I want to know what you think about this particular brand. Ask yourself, when you're posting a social media post, ask yourself, why am I writing about this? What relevance does this have to my customer? And if it does, it's perfect. And again, by having 3 or 4 different topics, it allows you to be an interesting person. It allows you to talk about a variety of subjects, but that ultimately always connect back to your brand and your business and help you create that empathy with your ideal customer.
And then finally, most importantly, and you've seen this all the way through this, focus on what matters. The world is full of distraction. The world is full of shiny new things that you can get distracted with. And I'm suddenly looking around there, oh, look at that, that's lovely. Oh, that needs dusting. Oh, I haven't done that. You easily get distracted. We don't want you to get distracted. We want you to focus. That's why we give you this. You know, we talk about write out what makes you special. Get those free avatars, those ideal customers, pick 3 channels, focus on those topics. If a new topic comes up, just go to yourself, no, I've got these 3. I've got to do. Shut everything else. Focus on what matters. Focus on appealing directly to your ideal customer. And if you can do that, then you'll nail the next 2 months. You nail the next 2 months, you expand and you expand. And that's the whole point. We want you to focus on the things that matter. And that's it. When I say that's it, but we're gonna give you an opportunity, because we've had loads of questions come in, I believe, James.
Questions in, yeah, we've got some good questions here. So if you want to come off the screen share, we can go through some of these questions right now. So
okay,
the first question is come up. I'm going to use this one first because it's come up 3 times. Is how do you do the ideal customer avatar? How do you come up with the detail for that? And that is a hard thing to do. It's probably the hardest thing that we've got, because you can look inside yourself to understand what makes you special, but trying to get into the head of the ideal customer isn't quite as easy sometimes. But there are a number of kind of tips we can use to try and help you get into the head of your ideal customer. And the first and easiest one is, a lot of people who set up small businesses do so because they found a need that they had that wasn't currently available. So there's a pretty good chance that you might actually be your ideal customer, in which case that makes it fairly easy. You can start writing about your life, write about the problems you had before you were able to solve that problem. Put yourself into a position of before you found your product or before you found your service, and write down as much as you can about that. On the other hand, you might not be. You might have just spotted a great gap in the market, in which case you might already have some customers. And if that's the case, then just ask your customers, ask some questions, talk to them and engage with them. Again, use your small business advantage, which is you, your personality, your ability to chat to people, and try and ask them about what channels do they use, where do they hang out, what sort of messaging works for them. And then this is a bit of art and a bit of science. So yes, you have to make some assumptions, you have to draw some conclusions from the stuff that you've got there. And then the most important thing is test. You can test stuff, because again, you're not trying to test it with a huge wide audience of a huge number of people that may or may not see it. Instead, you're focusing on a small group of people, so you can test stuff, see if it works, see if it hits, see if it connects. And if it doesn't, maybe you've got to change it. You might need to adjust the avatar a little bit. And that's why it is a cyclical process, where sometimes you change the avatar a little bit to make it fit better with what makes you special. Sometimes you tweak what you offer to better appeal to the avatar. So it's really a bit of art, a bit of science, and using what you know and what your customers know, and then a bit of, tactical stuff around what are the demographics of each of the social media platforms to know whether that's the right connection for you.
Cool. Now you've answered one other one I was going to bring up, which was effectively testing. So we talked about that: refine, test, refine, test, refine. It's the art of marketing. I'll bring in another question, which is a very, very common question we get, particularly on these sorts of webinars, which is the example we've got here is I've got two halves of my business, a B2C and a B2B side, and they're quite different, and the messaging is different. But this can happen even within brands that aren't B2B and B2C. They could have just two competing kind of products. And I'll be honest with you, we've been through this ourselves. We have a marketing services business which works with larger SMEs, I would probably describe it as that, and hospitality and places like that. But then we also have a part of our business which is dedicated to doing amazing things like this, which is talking to small business, solopreneurs, self-employed, 2 to 5 people businesses, stuff like that, and totally different messages. The things that work in one place are different. You've got to ask yourself 2 questions. Question number 1 is, we do that exercise where we look at the crossover of the content and we look at a Venn diagram. And if we think there is not enough crossover so that the content won't appeal, we start to go, okay, maybe we need to have 2 different brands. And that's what our solution in the end was, to have 2 completely different brands. But don't always jump to that, because people always assume that. The reason we went for that is because some of the messaging we would put out on brand A conflicted, probably didn't fit and appeal to brand B. Yeah, it was less about the fact that don't worry too much about the fact that I've put up a post and this person won't be interested. That happens, and you can put up posts and people won't be interested. But will it make them go, well, that's not really the business for me? And that's really where you got to think about it. Is there conflict? Is there conflict between the 2? If there is conflict between the 2, you probably do have to split them out, and you do have to have 2 different brands. That's not, but don't jump there, because if all you've got is a series of messages, you go, if I put this up, these guys probably won't be enamored by it. That's fine, because people are obsessed that everyone sees your content all the time. They really don't. Okay. On average, if you put up, if you've got a really good following on Instagram, for example, and you put a message out, it's probably only between 8 and 10% of your audience that's going to see that. Okay. But that's a scary piece of information. I probably shouldn't have told you this early on a Wednesday morning, but I do apologize, but it's a fact. So the reality is, you can get away with showing multiple messages. You can get away with repeating messaging, because it isn't going to offend. The only time you really want to split out the brands is when they conflict, is when, if we put out messaging talking about the fact that we love working with small businesses, we love helping them get started up and everything else. These big brands that we work with, sometimes they would go, not sure I want to work with a company that's like deals with the lower end. So
Sainsbury's aren't with you after you've been talking about the same.
Nobody wants to work with Sainsbury's anymore. That's fine. It's not a problem. But the whole point being, as long as they don't conflict, then it's fine to have 2 different messaging.
Very good. Very good. Well, right. I'm going to pick up the one I've spotted here. It's come up a couple of times, which is about, it actually takes us back to our market analogy from earlier on, but it's true of eBay businesses. It's true of any marketplace business. The question was, how do I deal with the fact that I'm driving traffic, I'm driving customers, and then ultimately those customers may very well see competitors, other things. So there's something like that, and then there was another question about how I put this information into my eBay listing and things like that. So I'll pick on the first one first, because everyone gets a bit worried about this, don't they? But worried about being like, I need to be secretive about my secret source and my stuff So I don't really want to tell everyone about it, because then everyone, then everyone will copy it or something like that. But the truth is, if you're in a marketplace, if you're in a market, or you're in a shopping center, or you're anything like that, yes, you have got this massive opportunity of lots of traffic that is coming there anyway. And if I'm a customer that's arrived on eBay or any marketplace, and I'm just looking around, then I am going to be jumping from seller to seller to seller to looking at a product focused search. But if you've sent someone in from your social, if I'm selling, fitness equipment, and I brought someone in using my fitness equipment ad, even if there were 3 or 4 other sellers selling the same product, selling the same service, everything could be exactly the same. Even the price could be the same. But because I connected with the customer via my social media, and I brought that customer to me, to my channel, and I showed them my personality, and I engaged with them, and I did a lot of other stuff too. And I spoke, crucially, in the listing details with the right photographs. I spoke to the pain points they have. They're far more likely to engage with me than they are to engage with any of the other people, because again, I know what drives them. I know what their purchase drivers are. I know that their priorities are different, and ultimately anybody that's going after a broad approach on there will not succeed against you if you're going for a really focused approach. So yes, you are driving traffic, you are driving people in to look at competition, but you shouldn't get worried about that, because it's just another reason to create a really, really good listing that ultimately gets across all these things for ultimately that will appeal to your customer.
And ultimately, that is the reason why you've got to drive your own traffic, because if you're not driving your own traffic, they will just be going across the listing and you're waiting for them to find you. So that is why you've got to, if you run an eBay business, and somebody put the question, how do I put all this information into the listing? Customers don't read descriptions, which is probably very, very true. But the reality is, that's why it's so much more important to drive your own traffic, because otherwise you are just at the vagaries of a customer just looking through a list. And if you're driving them direct to you, that's why it makes it much more important. Now, there's a really good question about how do you choose who your ideal customer profile is? I want to go after and sell to a certain type of customer, but do I go with the ones that have brought me a steady stream up to this point? And this is back to the point we were making earlier, which is you will have more than one. We had Malcolm, we had Sunita, we have we have our own. We have two avatars that we use for our academy business, which is Valerie and Paul. And Valerie and Paul are quite different people, at different times. One is a very very focused, runs his own business, very focused on that, and one is just someone who does it almost as a part-time thing, and it's just an enjoyable thing. Now we've worked out that they don't clash, so that we can have those two and they can cross over, but we can still appeal to both types of customers. But it's important because that's why you have multiple. You probably have, of those 3 customers, one of them could be your regular customer that you know a lot about, and one of them could be one you're aspiring to. And it's important. One thing we didn't mention, but we do often talk about, is what is an ideal customer. An ideal customer doesn't necessarily have to be the person who spends the most money. It could be someone who's, as small businesses, probably a lot of us would just like the person who comes in every month and spends a regular little amount, because that's nice. It's controllable income. We can understand it. We all, as a marketing agency, we much prefer having our nice retainer clients than we do having big bang one-off projects, because it's much easier to manage the rest of your business. So that's a good example of who you might go after. But also, don't be afraid to go after less profitable clients, but they're advocates. We love an advocate, someone who basically isn't going to spend a massive amount of money, but they're going to go and tell the world how amazing you are. They're going to write a great testimonial. So again, focus on where you want your business. We always say this, and I think it's important to remember, where do you want your business to be in 12 months' time? What sort of customers do you want to have? Right. Well, then start appealing to those customers. They're not going to put off the customers you've got now, because you're going to be smart with how you do your messaging, but you should start appealing to where you want to be.
Absolutely. And another quick question, a couple more questions have popped up on here. One was, if you're selling on lots of platforms, should you pick one? And I would use, if I may be permitted to quote Confucius, the man who chases 2 rabbits catches none. And the truth is that if you have a limited amount of time, which you do, if you have a limited amount of resource, which you probably do, then it is far better to focus the customer into one conversion point. That's what we always talk about, this idea that all these different bits of marketing channels are all about sending people to one conversion point, and confusion is the enemy of conversion. So if a customer has got 3 or 4 different places, and woe betide, the pricing is different in a number of different places, then it's confusing and complicated, and it creates a lack of trust as well, and a lack of certainty. So that can be really damaging. So actually, it's quite sensible especially when you're starting out, to pick that one place you want to send people to and direct them, put all your efforts into directing them there, know that you're going to convert them in that place. But the most important thing is you need to make sure that that place is a place that your customer wants to buy things. So that's, again, something like eBay. It gives them the trust, it gives them the confidence, it gives them the ability to be able to know what they're doing when they get there, in a process that works for them. So again, make sure that you're you putting all your efforts into sending them to one place, and then that place is a great place that they're going to want to convert.
Brilliant. Now I think maybe this will be the last one we'll see. I love this question because it really plays into the whole tactical problems solved by strategic solutions. So the question was, I've identified Facebook groups, which can be a great source to target potential customers, but not sure how to appeal to them. Do you have any suggestions on how to get our message across? I love it, because that is a tactical problem, but the strategic solution is understanding that customer. Because the goal with Facebook groups is not to get, we've probably all seen it, we've probably all been in it, where those Facebook groups, it's just like, buy my product, and that's all that people do. The whole point of a Facebook group is to engage with it, is to talk to the customers, to help the customers, is to help the group. Don't go in with a hard sell. Use the classic 80-20 rule. 80% of the time, you're just engaging, you're talking with them, you're basically having a chat as part of the group. 20% of the time, you happen to talk about the product you sell. And the whole point is you're trying to help people, and you gradually, but the answer can't always be, oh, I can help you with that. Here's my product, you can buy it from me. That can't always be the answer. Point them in the direction of different things, but also gradually twist it round to being about your product. But the whole point is, the better you understand your customer, the more you can just have a normal conversation with them. You can start chatting to them. If you become an advocate in that group, if you become someone that's engaged with the group, most of these Facebook groups are like communities, and they recognize the people that are in those communities that are helping. So if you're someone that's been in there and they've seen you in there every day for the last 3 or 4 weeks, and you've made 3 or 4 helpful suggestions to help some people in the group without selling anything, you're a trusted partner at that point. So I really do, I have to emphasize that a lot. We've used Facebook groups ourselves. We've seen people use them really well and really badly. And the bad ones are where it's just like, oh yeah, I know the answer to that. Here's my product. The answer is not always sell.
And it's true of all channels, of all tactics. Be wary of people telling you that you should be sending out a newsletter, or you shouldn't be sending out a newsletter, or you should be on TikTok, or you shouldn't be on TikTok. Generally, those people are selling an email service or a TikTok consultancy. The only person that tells you what channels you should be spending your time on is your ideal customer.
And if I can end on one final, because there's still hands being raised and there's still questions coming in, but we are out of time. If you have more questions you want to ask and we haven't got to them, then feel free, find us on Instagram, go and find me and James on LinkedIn. Feel free to send us those questions, and we'll do our best to answer them as best we can. But otherwise, we wish you the best for the weekends. For the weekends. Oh God, I've jumped through. It's only the middle of the week. With you the best of the day, and hopefully we'll speak and see some of you again soon.